Recently, we've received news from the official Hazbin Hotel Twitter that our beloved Charlie has undergone a redesign. Personally, I really like it. The changes are minor, such as her donning a similar suit to Aleister and her eye colour changing from black to red. This change got me delving into a rabbit hole I wasn't sure I was ready for. Over the years, the majority of Vivziepop's Hazbin Hotel characters have received changes to their design and character. For example, Angel was originally in a relationship with Vagi. Who'd have thought? And Aleister was a shapeshifter. I decided it would be a fun idea to delve into the history of some of my favourite Hazbin Hotel characters, so we can learn a little bit more about how they originated before any potential upcoming design changes occur. Let's get into it, shall we? Since we've already gone over Charlie, her section in this video is going to be quite brief, but I still wanted to talk about her original design as it's pretty fucking cool. Charlie's original design had a totally different vibe, sporting a monstrous claw hand, red hair, and boots to rival Angel's. The biggest change to happen to our current Charlie has been her eye colour changing from black to red, but as it turns out, her eyes were originally red to begin with. Personally, I really like this original Charlie and would love to see the design potentially reused at some point. The monster claw is just so cool. It's also interesting to note that in very early drafts of Hazbin Hotel, Charlie was considered an entirely separate character. Her design obviously was much different, but so was her personality. She wasn't the daughter of Lucifer, she was actually just a mortal soul who died in the 1830s. Vivzi ended up liking the name Charlie so much that she transferred it to the Charlie that we now know and love. Unfortunately for this video, Charlie hasn't gone through as many changes as her debut in the pilot. She had a minor change during the Addict music video where her hairstyle changed and her suit became less washed. Her new changes seem to further emphasize the direction her design was already going in, while drawing some inspiration from her original design too, namely, the eyes. I really like how Charlie currently looks, but would still love to see the original design for Charlie reused, especially that monster claw. What do you think? Which Charlie is your favourite? Next up, we're going to be talking about my favourite character, Angel. Angel has gone through a lot of changes, not just to his design, but to his personality too. Originally, Angel's design was a lot duller, sporting a white and black suit instead of white and pink, with darker eyes and spots. I like this design a lot, but I do think his current design better reflects his personality. The Angel we all know and love is a gay spider demon who works for Valentino as an adult film star. He comes from an extended mob family, some of whom we've seen glimpses of, being Molly, Arachnis, and Angel's father, Henroin.
When my brother, Harold, asked me to be the best man at his wedding, I was like, oh, of course, man. Because you've always been there for me. Because Harold, you know, he's always been the dependable one. And I've always been the screwed up one. Right, Dad? But, little newsflash, Pop. Harold ain't so perfect.
What? Terrific.
Huh? I'm a person too, Pop, goddammit. I'm a person too.
You're a moron.
The Angel of the Past, however, was pretty different. His character was originally inspired by Roger from American Dad, being stated as displaying the traits of a ridiculously drugged out psychopath.
Hugs, not drugs. That's what I say. I'm also on drugs.
Oh my God! My drugs!
I'm a winner, Ma! Look at me now! Now don't look for a second. Woo! You can look again, Ma!
Nowadays, he's shown to be much more empathetic. Supposedly, he enjoyed dressing in drag, and as previously mentioned, was in a relationship with Vagi. Vivziepop eventually decided against it, describing them as no longer being compatible romantically. I enjoy both of Angel's designs. They both have their own charms, but in the end, I wouldn't revert Angel's design back to how it used to be. Would you prefer to see a more sporadic, psycho Angel than the Angel we know? Either way, I can't wait to see if they choose to redesign him too. Before we talk about our next character, I'm going to be giving a little trigger warning for mentions of suicide. If that makes you uncomfortable, please feel free to skip to the next chapter. I'll put a timestamp on screen for you. Now it's time to talk about Vagi. From a visual perspective, Vagi has probably gone through the most drastic changes of the main cast when it comes to her design. It seems they had a general idea of who Vagi was, an overprotective punk rock Latino from the 80s, but struggled settling on a design. Vivziepop has previously shown a desire to have Vagi wear different outfits for every episode of Hazbin Hotel. This could be due to them having so many ideas for how they wanted Vagi to look. Initially, Vagi originated from Vivziepop's webcomic, Zoophobia, where she sported a dark blue colour palette with stronger ties to moths in her design. Specifically, her outfit had a purple cloak which resembled moth wings, and ribbons that might represent antennae, though in some cases she had horns or large, glowing red eyes on the back of her cloak. Her design pulled more heavily from gothic attire, reminding me somewhat of Widowmaker from Overwatch. They eventually would tone down the moth theme, along with rehauling another aspect of Vagi's design, which was supposed to represent themes of suicide. It's been theorized that this was how Vagi died. Whether or not this has been retconned, we'll have to wait and see. Before they reached the design we know nowadays, a second design was trialled. This version of Vagi leaned much more heavily into the 80s, but was definitely closer in design to our current Vagi. She had dark blue hair, her signature X over her eye, and wore a dark blue and red dress with fluffy red leg warmers? I don't know what these are. What are they? This design is also where her bow originated from, albeit was much smaller. Personally, I can see why Vivziepop struggled settling on a design for Vagi. They're all really cool. I think my favourite of her designs has to be the original though. Her outfit, the cloak resembling moth wings included, is a really unique gothic design. That being said, I do think the Vagi we know nowadays is more suited to the show. Some aspects to her design have been dulled down a lot, but a slight modernization matches the decision to have her date of death change from the 80s to 2014. If they do decide to redesign her, I hope they can find a nice balance when it comes to her moth and gothic inspirations. Now we're going to be talking about everyone's favourite grumpy old man, Husker. Husker always had a very distinct personality, and not much has changed about him since he was first created. Vivziepop wanted to reflect his love of magic throughout his design, resulting in his outfit reflecting the look of a magician, with his fur patterns resembling a tux and top hat. A complaint of his current design is that it does seem to be quite detailed, with card symbols scattered across his wings. I would imagine his current design is quite complicated to animate, so I wouldn't be surprised if they decided to redesign him and simplify the design a bit. If they were to keep some of the more complicated aspects to his design, such as his wings, I doubt it would be seen using them all too much, not only due to the complications of animating Husk flying. Vivziepop has stated that Husker doesn't use his wings all too much as a representation of his unwillingness to accept his demon form. As it turns out, he doesn't like the form he took in Hell, though over time has come to accept it. Husker's original design carries many of the same aspects that would later become the Husker we know today. The biggest difference being that his fur was a light shade of grey, and his wings had a slightly orange tint to them. His wings lacked many of the details of his current design and seemed to look more like your standard feathered wings. It wasn't until later in development that his wings became more detailed and complicated. Something interesting to note is that the original Husk was actually designed by Vivziepop's sibling, Maritza. On screen, you can see Maritza's original design for Husker, and next to it, an updated version, also by Maritza. Vivziepop liked the design so much that she developed it into a character. Husker's design overall is really unique. I love both the original and the updated versions of his design, but I wouldn't be surprised if they simplified his design for the sake of easier animation. I hope they stay true to what Maritza initially envisioned Husker to be, as they really designed a wonderful character in Husker. Now we're going to be talking about Nifty. This section of the video is going to be quite short, as there really haven't been many changes to Nifty's design since she was created. Nifty is a short, one-eyed demon who works as the chef for Hazbin Hotel. She's super hyper, bouncy, and has a tendency to fixate on things such as cleaning and, weirdly, men. A piece of controversy regarding Nifty's design that I've seen debated is her height and childish nature. A lot of viewers initially believed her to be the youngest of the group because of this, when in reality she's older than both Charlie and Vagi. This has created some controversy amongst fans of Nifty who enjoy drawing lewd art of her. She's just short, though she wasn't always this way. Initial artwork of Nifty depicts her as being around shoulder height to Husker, almost as tall as Vagi. Modern artwork of her brings her roughly up to Husker and Vagi's waist. Aside from her height, not much has changed at all when it comes to Nifty's design. Something I didn't know before researching Nifty for this video though was that Nifty is actually themed around bugs and aliens. In a very early draft, she was designed with an antenna that appeared whenever she became excited. Vivziepop stated that she was unsure if her bug-like features will be added back at some point in the future. The more I look at Nifty, the more buggish she appears to me now. If they redesign her, chances are they may choose to re-add her antenna or alter her height again. I think this would be really interesting, and while I like our current Nifty's design, it would certainly bring more to her character if they leaned more into her bug and alien origins. What do you think? Of course, I had to save the very best for last. You didn't think I'd forgotten about Aleister, did you? Aleister too originated from Vivziepop's Zoophobia webcomic, but his design was a little different back then. Instead of being a smart-dressing old-fashioned radio announcer, he was initially a cannibalistic shapeshifter with a deer form. Back then, he didn't just resemble a deer, he was a deer. At least, he could shapeshift into one. This is where his cannibalistic tendencies originated from, though it has been stated that previously Aleister was only obsessed with consuming deer meat. Vivziepop has stated that she does think it may be possible that Aleister still has a deer form of some kind, though she thinks he wouldn't use it very often. Vivziepop listed some of Aleister's inspirations to have been Wendigos, voodoo, and more specifically, Dr. Facilier from Disney's The Princess and the Frog.
Shake my hand. Come on, boys. Won't you shake a poor sinner's hand?
Aleister's design by nature is one that tends to shift, sometimes subtly, sometimes not so much, as he has the ability to change how both he and those around him present. His horns can bend and grow at will. His original design sported a tattered, darker red, sometimes black suit, with striped yellow shoes and overall a more frayed and maddened look. His deer form was a simple, small red and black fawn, with large ears and of course pointed yellow fangs. He was supposedly immortal in this form, but was somewhat of a masochist, enjoying pain regardless of his inability to die. Aleister's design was eventually tweaked to the Aleister we now know, losing a lot of his animalistic characteristics and traits, but not losing them entirely. He kept his ear-like hair tufts as a reference to his ears, his horns, and gained red, deer-like hoofprints on the undersides of his shoes. I think it would be interesting if Aleister still had a demon deer form, but I doubt we'll see that confirmed in the show. As a whole, Aleister's character is very well defined, and I don't see them changing his design anytime soon. The writers are well aware of his popularity and know how changing a character like Aleister drastically could affect the fan base. If you could change Aleister at all, would you? For me, he's the one character I hope they don't change. And just like that, we've covered all of the main cast of Hazbin Hotel. I honestly had so much fun researching and learning about the origins of our favourite husbands, their designs, and how they came to be. What do you think of Charlie's redesign? Who are you hoping will get a redesign too? If you could change anyone's design, what would you do, and why? I've never made a video like this before, so if you enjoyed it, please consider leaving a like and subscribing for more Hazbin Hotel and Hell of a Boss content. Thanks for watching. I'll see you all when Aleister's redesign breaks the internet.